All right, we are live. How's it going, everybody? This is kind of a last minute thing, but I figured I was probably going to work on some decks and build some things and figured why not share it with y'all. So
All
here we
right,
are
we
on a
are live.
Friday
How's it going, everybody?
afternoon
This
slash
is
evening, I should say.
this is
Evening, I should say. I don't know, depending on where you are. It is 3 o'clock. So if you're on the West Coast, it's afternoon. If you're East Coast or further, then I guess it's evening or even tomorrow. So thank you for stopping by today. But I also want to open this time so if you're a viewer or a fan or whatever, or you have any questions, whether it's for me or if it has to do with magic or strategy or whatever, feel free to ask. I'm kind of just opening this up, kind of making it, I don't know if you want to call it like just a general chat, a fireside thing, whatever, but just a way for like if you want to ask some questions, now's your time. Instead of having to post in the YouTube comments, you could just do it directly and have it answered. Brandon Ray says, "What up, Dragon? How's it going, Brandon?" Josh says, "Hey, just want to say I appreciate all the work you do and love your content." Well, thank you so much, Josh, because it is a lot of work. So Lulis desde Mexico. Hey, how's it going? I used to live down there, man. I used to be in Texas. Not in a while. I live up in the Northwest now, but appreciate you from all over, wherever you're from. All right. So I'm not really sure what type of deck I want to build just yet. That wasn't really that far into my game plan, but I figured I'll just make it kind of a process. We can go through it together. So let me switch screens here. We'll hop into Twitch, or actually not Twitch, just into our arena. We're on YouTube today. But yeah, like I said, if y'all have any questions throughout any of this or anything you want to chat about, toss it in there. This is kind of like a chill stream. This isn't going to be a super organized like I've done my other ones previously or even like my videos. This is more like y'all are just kind of getting to hang out with me today for, I don't know, maybe an hour, hour and a half while we're just putting some stuff in there. But I appreciate all of you who have stopped by on a spur of the moment because we didn't know how many people were going to stop by today. So it's actually kind of nice that y'all are here. But anyway, I guess here's the thing. Let me ask y'all this. What type of decks have you either, okay, a two-parter. What type of decks have you not seen or cards have you not seen built with that you would like to see? And then the other is what have you seen, deck type or cards, that you think need another version or an update or whatever from where we were previously with it? Because I think those are two slightly different things, but I'll let y'all tell me because I'm sure y'all have something that y'all would like to see. Josh says, I dream of some type of artifact standard deck with Mechanaut with lots of cheap artifacts, but I can't get it to work. I built a version of that and it sucks. I mean, I can probably let me see if I can find it for you. Like I feel like I was goofing around with this. Was it that one? No, not that. This one was actually okay. We did this with Mechanaut, and this one was fine. This is the only one I was able to make work. This one was really because of Surge Engine and because of the Lizard Blades Mind Link mech combo, right? That's the only reason I think this worked out. Like, I don't like Mechanaut helped, but I almost feel like this could have been something else as well. There were a few times the deck worked better specifically because it was Mechanaut and let us play a couple of things on a turn. But I don't know how like beneficial it's I don't know how mandatory it is to the deck. I think you could get away with a couple of different options. But if you want to this we have this video up if you want to see it played. Just look up is it artifacts and it should come up on the YouTube. Matter of fact, I can probably just get the link for you. And that's probably going to be your best bet if I were guessing. Cuz I can't like I said, I try a bunch of different stuff and a lot of times by the time you see my video, I've already like goofed around with probably 4 or 5 other versions of it that I've been testing, and some of them are just bad. And eventually, after all that work, you just land on something that works, and that's awesome. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work. Here you go, boom, there you go. That link takes you to the Is It Artifacts video. Um, all right, let me go back to this. Let's see. Dr. Solidar says, lately Arena's been asking me after ending a duel if I had fun. What's up with that? It's something they had before. They just reinstituted it. It's more just like quality of life. You know, I think it's their way of being able to say, okay, how many games happen where both players had a good time, right? Let's look at the factors of those games and then, you know, figure out all the things we can so we can replicate that. Like one of the things that people don't know is Wizard of the Coast has a what's the official term for it? It's like a I don't know what you want to call it, but like a behavioral research department, effectively. They have a name for it. I can't remember the title, but basically they take into account all the different types of ways people engage with Magic, all the different player types. If you're competitive, casual, do you like storyline stuff? Do you like collect foils? Right, all those things. Right, and this is the type of thing that would play into that. That if you can find those things where both players say they liked it, okay, now we can look at all the behavior of these players. Where how are they ranked? How do they get to the rank? What type of decks do they play more often? And you can start to figure that stuff out. So if there are situations, at some point, even for R&D, they might be able to go, hey, every time players said they liked these things, these types of decks are available or these type of interactions happened, and then maybe they could design more cards for that or whatever, right? It's just another data point for research, if anything. um, hey Parks, how's it going? Zach says Demir artifacts is a thing I've seen some folks playing. I could see that that's probably a thing. I believe that. Just as I was hoping for lots of cheap artifact creatures and something like Urza Prince to buff them. You could do that. I mean, the problem is the good artifacts are already known, so you might as well just play all the ones that were in that deck if you wanted to. Swap out 2 cards and just put in Urza, and it's like the same thing. You're already playing a lot of the better cards that are available to you. Any decent ramp decks in this meta? We had one. That's another one. I'll just pull it up from my YouTube channel. We did that a couple days ago, I believe. I believe the thumbnail even said, "This is why you ramp." I think that was actually the thing. Here you go. We'll put that link in there too for you. There you go. East Coaster. I wish I could hang, but I'm leaving work and I'm on my way to play tennis. Hey, go have a good round. Tennis is hard, man. I think people take that for granted. It looks easy, but that's a real workout. The lateral movement and your hips, man, that'll wear you out. Kaizen says 4-color non-blue aggro. That's a pile of words. I don't know. I don't know what you want that to be. I need something more specific. Brandon Ray says I've been running a Demir control draw deck with Siphon Insight, Katose, Shieldred, Teferi, Pilgrim, Arbiter. I like the idea of stealing the opponent's win con. What do you think? If it's working for you, keep playing it. I mean, like, there's not really much else to say there. Like, if it's working for you, keep on keeping on. Wizards actually, believe it or not, does have quality marketing. I mean, think about this. The fact that up until the last few years, Wizards has only had things that were internally built and or branded, and everything that existed was basically another way to play Magic, right? Until we started getting all these mobile apps and other stuff, whatever, and it started to change. But they did all that without having like movie deals, big actors doing stuff. You know, they weren't in like cereal boxes or any of that other stuff. So like, that's one thing I do think Wizards gets right. As much as you know, you can take shots at other things. I think they actually do that one pretty well. Shalom. I hope you're enjoying Christmas time. Yeah, for the most part, I got all my Christmas shopping done. Gifts are under the tree. I'm just kind of working on plans going into 2023 for future content and deals with partners and stuff with brands. Alexander says, I have a ninjutsu discard that shouldn't work but does. Early discard returned with ninjas. Ability to draw and add death touch to bad blocks to blow out opponent's creatures. I could see that. I mean, we did a little bit of discard stuff and the deck was actually okay. I think sometimes you just run into problems if you hit certain aggressive decks or that can get creatures of size pretty quickly because then they just block and don't care, right? Then you're just forced into some tough spots. But I've seen a lot of decks I feel like I've run into lately, at least once a night or twice a night, making content where people will be leaning on a lot of discard. I'm seeing a lot of pilfers, a lot of dread fugues. and they've still lost. So I'm a little suspicious of how heavy some people are pushing some of the discard lately. Because I don't remember the last time we lost to one. That's not true. I lost to one when I just already had a bad hand and mulligan to 5. But in normal situations, I haven't had too much trouble with them. So I'd be a little dubious, little concerned. But hop it over in the Discord. I'll take a look at it and maybe put it on stream or something. I hate Wizards is actually good at making me buy their stuff. I need to save money. Too much. Yeah, that's the issue, right? Like being real about it. There is a lot of product out there right now, but at the same time, they're also selling a lot of product, and a lot of us have bought and own a lot of that product. So it's easy to go like, there's too much stuff, but the other part of it is like we all keep buying it. So is it really too much, right? Until you start getting backed up with product in warehouses, like is it too much product? I don't know. Josh asked, do I feel like Wizard has been playing it too safe lately? I feel like the power level of cards has been a lot lower in Standard lately. Ooh, I don't know. There's a lot of powerful things in Standard. I mean, yeah, a lot. Like Farewell, Shieldred, Meathook Masker that we had to ban. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff to play with in Standard right now. I don't know if I'd say it's too safe at all. I think it's probably where it needs to be. You want things to be cohesive, you want things to be powerful, but at the same time, you also want them to try things occasionally, and some of them will fail and some will be excessively powerful, right? I think a case where that went too far was with Meathook Massacre, but we banned it and now Standard is fine. So like one of those things. I've been trying to build a deck that combines Jenny Faye and Agnes. Any tips? Agnes isn't good. I would just play Jenny Faye and something else and not Agnes. Did you manage to get the 30th countdown kit? I got one and started the countdown to New Year. I finally pulled a decent foil today. 30% chance. Yeah, I did actually. I got 2 and I gifted one to somebody that really needed it, I think deserved it, and didn't get one. So I didn't know what I was going to do with it. An opportunity came up. So I have one, but I haven't opened mine yet. I'm pretty bad about opening product unless I do like a box opening or something. Hello from Brazil. Congrats on all your work. Solid content. Thank you so much. Olavo. That's a cool name. Thanks. Park says, I've got to get some chores done. Wish you the best. Peace, guys. Well, thanks for stopping in today. Still appreciated. What is that? What is that? Ultimate, I don't even know how to read your name. Ultimate Retro ASD. That's what that is. I was trying to read that as a word, but it wasn't a word. Okay. Standard seems pretty healthy right now. Pioneer on it. Yeah, I haven't actually played much Pioneer. I got some cards together, but didn't play. I will say Standard's pretty okay right now. I think what upsets people is, let's say you play 20 games, best of 1 over the course of an hour or two, probably 2 hours, obviously. But you might run into like 3 mono black, 2 or 3 mono red, probably a mono blue, 2 soldiers decks. And then maybe right lately, like some Azorius control will at least be one, and then the rest are going to be mixed, right? But that's still like 60% being made up of like 4 or 5 different decks, and then the others being other decks. That's still not bad. That's pretty healthy, all things considered. But I think it's easy for us to go like, I hate playing against this deck. So when you see it for the 3rd time, it feels so much worse than it is, But realistically, pretty much every color can be played monocolor right now. Now that I'm thinking about it, like that's a pretty rare thing, right? That doesn't happen that often. And most color combinations have at least some reasonable deck you can build and play in Standard. So I'm not sure we could want it to be too much healthier than it. Now, don't get me wrong. There's problem cards like nobody likes playing against Invoke Despair and, like that sort of thing. But that doesn't make the format bad. It just makes individual cards really powerful and you get tired of seeing them. But overall, I think it's fine. Yeah. All right. So now that more of you in here in the chat, let's go back to the original question that kind of started all this. But what type of decks? These are 2-part questions. So the first being, what type of decks or cards would you like to see built or built around? And the other is, what decks or cards have you seen built or built around maybe early in the season that you think need an update? Because if we're going to build something, I at least want to build something that maybe there's enough interest in or people are curious about and see if we can even do it. Because that's part of the challenge of the channel, right? Is just making all these decks with a bunch of stuff that sometimes just gets ignored, overlooked, maybe underplayed for one reason or another, and give y'all an opportunity to have a say so, because it's not often that you necessarily get to do that. I'm going to raise this up just a little bit. There we go. Little more centered there for you. Small things, small things. Because for me, when I just start looking through collections, sometimes I kind of go through and just say, okay, what cards have I not built with yet? And I start usually looking at mythics and rares, because usually at some point, the uncommons, if they make sense in the decks, I've probably already put in at some point. Sim says, only been playing 4 years, but this is the healthiest I've seen standard. Yeah, let's see, in 4 years, that's probably fair. This is probably one of the more healthy standards, realistically. I'm trying to think like pre-pandemic. Well, pre-pandemic was fine too. I mean, we at the very end, just before the pandemic, when we had the wilderness reclamation decks, that kind of sucked. But prior to that, it wasn't too bad once we got past all the Eldraine bans. Do you think the Urza Prince of Krug card is playable anywhere? Do y'all not watch my videos? I'm pretty sure. Does this search individual cards? Here's one I have that I have this in. That's Lord Protector. That's the other Urza. Oh, did I delete the other one already? I might have. I definitely had another video with Urza Prince of Krug in it. Let me do a quick search real quick, because I'll check my other stuff. Because I'm pretty sure I even had him in the thumbnail on one of them. If I'm not mistaken, I did. Here you go. I'm starting to feel like The Simpsons. Like, Simpsons did it. Here you go. So yeah, there's a deck list. Alright, let's see. That's your Rogues, Uro, Mono Red. Yeah, and Rogues was like annoying, but fine. Uro, again, it ended up on part of the ban stuff or whatever. Like, I think that's fine. But that's what I'm saying. Once we got past those bans, that standard was actually pretty good. I think it's hard for people to remember because we had a bunch of cards get banned, so it feels like it was way worse. But there was a period where it was really bad, and then we started putting stuff on the ban list, and it was fine. The downside of that, though, is I think it led to a lot of people being upset because so many cards were on the ban list, right? Because at one point, I swear we had like 7 or 8 things on there, and like that's rough, right? When you open a interesting rare mythic, and you're like, oh, I can't even play this because it's banned in the format. Or you go to your local F&M and you're told like, oh, you can't play that deck. All right, so that's a little tough for people. But generally speaking, I think the format has points like right now where it's fine. Also, sales pitch. If y'all want to support the channel, you can join. Hit the join button down below, and there's super chats and other stuff or whatever if you want your messages highlighted to make sure you get seen, all that good stuff. All right. So anyway, what I was doing here, if nobody has suggestions on what you want to see, I'm just going to go through and I'm going to look at rares and mythics and just standard stuff here and see if there's something we haven't really played with in a while that would be worth it. Because I don't know. Like, I have this idea that there's probably some gross build I could build with, like, Light Paws and the little green-blue fairy, but I don't know if the deck's actually any good. It feels like it would take so much work to make possible. Even though we do have the lands to splash just Light Paws, I think it could be tough. Have I tried Blade Coil Serpent? I don't think there's anything to try. If you're playing the right colors, just splash 2 of them. I don't feel like that's one you build around. You just get cards and shoot things. If that's the card I'm thinking of. Yeah, it's just this. Like, I don't think this card is super good or bad one way or the other. I think it's just like, if I happen to be playing Grixis, I might play 1 or 2 just so if I draw it late, I get some extra value, but that's probably about it. Would love if a Light Paws Aura's deck would be available. Maybe Boros with Danitha. Maybe. I mean, that's possible. And Darius, how's it going? Um, I mean, I guess it's possible. I'm trying to think like what I could do to make that work. I mean, there's probably a way. Let me see. We'll see if we come across any. Just starting at rares and mythics and see if there's other things we could add in to help out these creatures. You know, Danitha, it could still be fine though if Danitha's like the end game of the top of your curve, right? Because what are we going to play beyond that? I think the issue is, do we want just auras or enchantments in general? Like, what does this end up looking like? Because Danitha only gets auras and equipment, but does get stuff out of the graveyard. So if you've had stuff die already, you get loaded up on the other things. That's actually pretty sweet. You know. Golden Augusty, I have a build coming, but it looks like a lot of other builds. It's just blinking all the like prototype stuff and just getting stuff bigger for the most part. Like I'll build it and it's coming. I already have it built and just haven't recorded the video, but it's not the most exciting thing. White blue prototype blink. The other deck is a blink deck. It's not white blue. The problem is it doesn't have blue. I don't think. I think it's white and something else. Need a proper Blade of the Only. The Blade of the Only is just a bad Magic card. It's not even bad. It's just aggressive. What I like to call aggressively mediocre. Right? It has all the words that should be really good, and it makes you want to. But because we have so many better things at that cost, or other equipment now, like you're playing it and it's fine, but it's not going to ever be exceptional. Whereas the other things you could play at the same cost, whether you're talking about at cost being like underdog or the other artifact where like for 1 black you can equip it to something, when it dies you get cards, right? What you're getting out of those cards is so much more than you get out of Blade of the Oni. Would reconfigure work with Danitha? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure which ones I'd even want to play with her, I think is the problem. Updated Ratadrabic deck. Not sure what we would update. We've not gotten any new cards or new concepts that really change that. It just looks like it does before. Pick your legends you want to play. I don't know if that one gets an update. Maybe next set, because we'll definitely have some more legends, and it's probably worth considering. Jeskai control with Anata. Never gonna happen. Though, is Hanada rotated anyway? What am I talking about? But it wouldn't happen anyway. Not my like. I don't like. That's just not even fun to me. So I probably would never play it. All the good spot removal. Yeah, and that's part of the problem, right? It's the issue of, is this good enough? So let's say we do play a couple of Danitha, because I don't know what this is going to look like yet. Oddly, this could work as a one of, just because we can search out some of the auras and put those down, so that's kind of cool. I'll definitely have to go through at some point and figure out what auras I want and what colors this is going to look like. Like, I think the issue here is you need to play. Man, I don't even know that what would make it worth it for me. Yeah, I just don't think these cards are good enough right now. The problem is I don't know if there's enough tools that make them work. I think is the real issue, because there's at least enough defensive cards, which are nice. So like that part's cool. I guess if we wanted to, we could even play like a couple of Fauna Shamans, since we're gonna splash into green anyway, and then we could go search for Light Paws and or Danitha or whatever if we needed to. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know if that's enough to make it worth it, but it's cool as an option. Looking at like green, white, green, blue, seeing if there's anything fun there. I don't know that there would be. Man, there's actually a cool idea if you could get this to work. Discard a bunch of stuff, search for a bunch of stuff, get to put it all in your creatures, but that feels like a lot of work. I don't think we'd ever actually get there. Obviously, this is the other part of the pseudo combo we would like to try to get to work. But I just don't know if that's enough. Yeah, I don't know if we'd be able to do enough here. Lizard Blades, Cold Cloud Still Kieran would work well, and a Light Pause Danitha. Does it though? Like Light Paws doesn't care about Cloud Steel and Lizard Blades. Like at that point, why do we even need Light Paws? That's just all equipment stuff. Light Paws cares about auras. So I'm not really sure that's a thing. Hey Blue Asian, how's it going? Let's maybe splash green and add protection. Protect the Tron. If you phase, then it does it retain the auras? If you phase, yes, you retain your auras. That is for sure. No, what I was thinking though is we do have a fair amount of protective spells, right? You could play Tameo Safekeeping. You also get what is it? The one that untaps and gives hexproof. This thing, Shore Up. If we want to do that, there's also a couple of white ones that give. I think one gives hexproof and scry, maybe? Is that what I'm thinking? Yeah, this thing. So, and indestructible, I guess. That's actually pretty sweet. So, like, we have protective spells. That part's not a problem. The issue then becomes how many other creatures can we even play that aren't Light Paws, Fauna Shaman, Ivy, Danitha, right? Because we got to have some number of actual other things. And then how much room is there for auras, right? Because that means you pretty much can't play something like Wedding Announcement. There's just not going to be room. But even here, we're already assuming we leave the land at 24 land. We might be able to get away with a couple less or one less. But even if we just leave it at 24, that doesn't leave us a lot of room. You know, it's 11 cards effectively. So we'd end up having to cut other stuff on some level. And maybe we don't need like, this is what, 11 defensive cards. Maybe we only need like 9 or 10. But still. Guess it's tough because I feel Aura's equipment probably don't have enough to be good on their own. Well, that's the issue, right? Then we start looking at what can we play. There's what is it? Audacity, I think, is the new one. That you get +1. It has tramples. If this card goes to graveyard, you draw a card. Like, that seems reasonable. But that's the other issue. I'm like, I don't even know what other auras I would want to play here. Other than maybe creatures that become auras, but the problem is that's a bit slow for trying to put them on something and search for something, right? Doesn't really do what we want. So that doesn't really work. Yeah, I think that's the issue. That like there's stuff like security bypass, which I don't hate. Like that's reasonable. Put it on a thing, get to draw some cards. You know, I'm all right with that. You end up having to attack with the thing by itself, which is a little bit disappointing. But you know, it's fine. I mean, we can try it. At least put it there for now because we don't have any other better choices. Saw someone who tried to combo Mishra with Ishin. That's a lot of work, but possible. Creatures with Disturb that return as auras. Well, yeah, that's the problem, though, right? Like, those don't work well when you have a Light Paws or an Ivy or whatever already in play because you have to get that creature dead first and then play it for the Disturb, right? So by the time you even get to that point, you might have already lost the other creature or whatever. So you need things that are cheap and efficient that you can just play when they come out so you can start getting the value from them. Otherwise, it doesn't really work. Yeah, I thought about Grafted Identity. However, you have to sacrifice a creature, and we're not really playing a way to sacrifice anything or can afford to sacrifice anything. If I had something that was making more tokens, then maybe. If you can get this for free, it's cool if we would just come in from the yard or something, or whatever, because you wouldn't be casting it, which does happen with Danitha, but that's like the one card that does it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that great, sadly. So I think that's the other issue. It's kind of not leaving us with a ton of good choices. I really do want to just go all in on mono green and play some Blanchwood Armors. Because that card's just silly. Like putting out a creature and like, now it's a 12/12. Like, deal with it. Right? That seems like a lot of fun, but it probably wouldn't happen. Cradle of Safety? Yeah, I've done that before. I had it in other builds. But if I do, I'm probably cutting like shore ups or something. Like, you just can't play all the defense, right? It's like some stuff has to go. And actually, that's probably the better case, because at least these give indestructible and hexproof. So if we can do that, I would just keep that, cut these. And then if you want to play Cradle, you probably do that. Probably like the next best thing. Cathar's Call. I don't even know what that card does. Creature has vigilance. Being able to upkeep, create a one. I mean, this is fine, but like, are we gonna sit around long enough to really build that value? You know what I mean? Like, it's cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, I don't hate it. We can try one. I'll give it a go. But I think my issue with this is, one, we don't have a ton of bodies. You know, so we only have 13 creatures. So we don't have a lot. So whatever we get, we have to protect. That's like the first problem. And the ones we do have, except for Fauna Shaman, are legendary. So that's the other issue, right? Even if we do get them, we can't get more than one. So it's a tough situation already. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I think the issue for me right now, and maybe this is where I just need to spend more time messing with it, but I think as it stands, there's just too many things to solve for here, and we don't have enough cards for the, I guess you want to call it, like, that meet more than one of those requirements, right? Like, if we somehow had an enchantment that also gave something hexproof, which would be really good, by the way, but like too good possibly, then it would be like, okay, now we're solving multiple problems with the card. Or if we had something that, like, I put this on a card and it made a copy of a thing, or it made tokens or something, right? Okay, now we're getting more blockers for doing the thing. But we don't really have that, and I think that's the issue right now, is that we're just going to be so far behind what every other deck is doing. Like, because here's the reality too, like, these aren't cards, like, previously when you play these types of decks in other formats, you also have cards that are either getting bigger with the enchantment you're playing, or they're giving a bonus or something, whatever, right? Or producing something when you play a thing, or getting another card. None of these really do that, right? So we're not growing our creatures by playing them. We're not getting great evasive abilities or whatever. So, like, I just don't think these really cut it, I think, is the problem. But Kadama of the Rest Tree, I mean, that's fine, but what does that do for us? Like, this deck isn't the type of deck that's going to be in the position to even want to attack very often until you've shored up the board and whatever. So, like, Kodama doesn't do it. That's the problem. Vesuvian Diplomancy, maybe, but that's pretty pricey for what this deck's trying to do. Personally had a lot of fun combining Security Bypass with Raiju. I could see some people doing that. I don't think Take Flight is too expensive necessarily, but I think it's just more about, like, all right, are we gonna live to where this is enough to put on a card, and is that enough to make a difference, right? Because realistically, unless we put it on Danitha, or maybe a Catilda that already happens to be flying, like, these are the only cards that really do anything in here, right? Because Ivy's pretty small. Even if everything worked and we put, like, Cradle Safely, Security Bypass, whatever, you're still only talking about having like a 3/2 Ivy, right? So it still dies to everything, especially at its cost of 2. Same thing with Light Paws. And that's the other thing too, right? We have to deal with the reality that even stuff like Cut Down are still around, right? So we end up having to play all these defensive cards just to keep these alive. Would the new Dragon Aura help? Well, the problem is that's double red, right? So then that just makes the deck untenable unless you just go a whole different color, which is possible. If you wanted to not play Ivy and there were some other red cards at work, then we could try that. But I don't think it's necessarily the way you want to go. But this is kind of the issue with deck building, right? When people are just like, I don't understand why the deck doesn't work. It's because like you're trying to do a lot of things without solving for the thing you're trying to do. And sometimes we are just forcing things for the sake of forcing it because we have pet cards or whatever the issue is. And I think that's kind of the issue here. Is like the idea of Light Paws, Ivy, Danitha sounds cool on paper, but I think when you compare it to other versions of this we've had, we don't have like we're not making our enchantments cheaper, right? So we're not getting to play multiples in a turn easily. We're not pumping a creature that maybe every time you play an aura it gets bigger. Because even in the previous versions, even you had auras that made your creatures bigger for having more auras on them, right? Or just enchantments in general in play. It didn't have to be an aura. You have some creatures that every time you play an enchantment, draw a card or whatever, right? We're just missing a lot of that stuff. I think there's no engine parts for this, whether that's accumulating more cards and mana or just building bigger creatures or more creatures, right? We're not doing any of those things with the cards we have. They're all cards that either protect our things or possibly make more cards in the case of like security bypass. And that's kind of it. I can see using Sticky Fingers and Dragon Aura working in a Boros deck. Maybe I need to. Doesn't the Draconic thing say if it goes to the graveyard from play? Oh no, when the creature it's on dies. That's what it is. So yeah, it has to be on something, the creature has to die, and then that goes back to your hand. So just putting it in the graveyard doesn't do anything. What about Averbruck Caretaker? But the Caretaker doesn't do anything. Like, I mean, the Caretaker's a 6 mana thing that needs you to have other stuff for it to be beneficial. This board at best is going to have 1 or 2 creatures if everything goes right. Right? Twin Blade's fine, but again, what are we pumping it up with? Maybe an Audacity and maybe a Cradle of Safety? You know what I mean? That's becoming the problem. It's just like, or even if we put the Twin Blade on something else, how much are we double striking with? Like a 4-power thing? Maybe? Like, if we end up doing that and we have a security bypass and all that stuff, then like it's great. But if you don't, it ends up being really rough. Any possible updates to Zur enchantment decks or Selesnya enchantment decks from Brothers War? There's already a lot of Selesnya enchantment decks running around. I think I have one built and I haven't even put it on a video just because I feel like I'm just adding to the noise. Zur enchantments, I don't think there's anything to add to that. Like, I think what you've seen is what you've seen. There's really no new stuff. You're already playing the best cards a deck can play. I think that deck just suffers a little bit just as the format has changed and the market has changed. Like, people knew what Zur did. People are playing a few more things to destroy enchantments main deck in some cases because stuff like Terra Sunder started getting a little more play. So I don't think that the deck is bad. I just think it's not as powerful as it was initially because everybody's changed, their awareness to certain cards. But yeah, so as the enchantments, there's a few things. I have a version that's trying to be more aggressive just to be different, so I might play that at some point. Have you played around with Prototype and Blink at all? I do have a version of that. I'm not excited about it, but I am going to feature it into a video on YouTube soon. Like, I know some people want to see it. I feel like everybody's who's wanted to do it has already done it. It's kind of like the obvious thing to do with it. But yeah, it'll be out there. Like, I think it's one of those things that like the idea is way more exciting than the actual reality of it. You know, I've even seen people trying to play the black cards where if this creature dies, it comes back into play with the +1/+1 counter or whatever. I've run into a couple of those on the ladder as well. So people are already doing that. Let's see what we got here. Silky Wilkie. I wish I knew how to put this on and like highlight it. I wish I had a way to do that. There is a way to do that. I got to figure out how. But ask question: can you fateful handoff an aura that is attached to your creatures? Well, let's see what fateful handoff says. Fateful Handoff says, draw cards equal to the mana value of target artifact or creature you control. An opponent gains control of that permanent. So you're saying, can I Fateful Handoff an aura that is attached to one of my creatures? Draw a card equal to the mana value of target, artifact, or creature. Well, I'm not sure I understand the question. Because this only says artifacts and creatures. So yeah, I think you may have misread the cards because I was like I thought I'm misremembering this, but yeah, I think that's the issue. I would like to play this card. I just don't know what the hell we do with it right now. Like, but it's kind of neat. Do I ever start to brew decks based on leaks? Nope. I don't talk about leaks at all. If you talk about leaks in my stuff, you get the boot. I don't talk about them on streams. I don't talk about them on my podcasts. I don't put them on my YouTube videos. Unless they're official, I don't talk about them. For a couple of reasons. One, I've actually previously worked at Wizards, and I understand how much work goes into that, and a release season, and everything else. And anytime there are problems, it literally causes an entire, I almost cussed there for no reason, a whole pile of work for a lot of people. So I do not want to pile onto that. Plus, the leaks aren't even 100% sure if they're going to be legit or not. However, the only thing I am aware of on those leaks, and I'm going to be very vague here, is that they did mention that those would be in the set anyway, and did not confirm that that would mean that's what we're getting from the story. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Now, what the cards do and say or whatever is a whole different thing. I purposely have not read them because I don't even want to make a deal out of it or talk about it. The other issue is that as a creator, there are people who they want to work with for certain things, certain reveals, and people put in work sometimes a month in advance, 2 months in advance, depending on what it is. And if that stuff comes out and ruins some of the surprise, it sucks for those people that are spending real time and money to help promote that thing and be part of a big reveal. So I don't want to contribute to that either. Like, I put a lot of time into making content, and I know how tough it is for people. So to that end, I just stay away from it as a whole. I don't like doing it. Nothing against you. I tell people, if the information's out there, feel free if you want to go watch it or whatever. I have no issues with that. If you want to talk about it elsewhere, I just don't encourage it on my channel. I just don't think it's good for business in any way, really. I think that's the problem. So that's my stance on it. Again, I'm not gonna like berate anybody for engaging in it. I mean, it's public information once it's out there, whether it's correct or not, but it is what it is. I will check Thran Power Suit in a second. I don't know what that is, but I will look. Silky Wilkie, thanks for another $10 super chat there. Says, brewing Najal deck to Fateful Handoff Sulkanar on my opponent's turn. Oh my goodness, that is a lot going on. All right, so Najal, first off, is that the cat warrior person? Do I have any filters? Maybe I don't have one yet. I don't know. Is that not? Maybe that's not standard. I don't know what it is. It's not coming up for me, so I have no idea what that is. But Sulkanar. Why am I not bringing up my filters? What's going on? Did I not get that right? Maybe it's not. Hold on. Oh, because doesn't he have like an apostrophe or something in his name? Here, let me just look up gold cards. Maybe not. I thought that's what it was. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't even know how to look up Sulkanar on here, y'all. Oh, I know what to do. I can just look up Instep. That would be fine. Maybe I just don't have one collected. Let's see. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I didn't own one yet. Yep, there it is. Nope, it says I did. It didn't come up a second ago. Anyway, there it is. Najal. Oh, that. I spelled it wrong. That's why. That's why. I was following your spelling. It didn't make sense to me. All right. So Solkanar, yeah, draw a card. Opponent loses life or drains life for 2 and deal 3 damage, and then in a turn, they gain control of it. So you want to Fateful Handoff, basically before the last turn, so your opponent chooses to give it back to you, is what you want to try to do. Huh. All right. And Najal, as you can cast a sorcery as though it had flash. Oh, man. I don't... This is something. You can pay 2. If I do, cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn. You copy it. Choose new targets for the copies. Huh. Man, this is a lot happening. I'm trying to like figure out what a deck would look like with all these cards. All right, I'm gonna kill this whole thing. I don't think there's enough parts for this deck to work, y'all. I'm literally just gonna kill it. I think it was a neat exercise. It's good to at least go through and know what cards are there and what can be done, but I don't think that's really truly viable. All right, we'll go look for more Solkanar. Oops. I don't know how many we need to play. I'll just put a couple there for now. And handoff, right? That's what we want to do. So handoff, no matter what, will let us draw cards, and then we give a thing to our opponent. And then... Man, I don't know what the rest of this deck has to look like, but it needs to be very low cost. Because we have... Right now you're looking at 2 key cards that are 5 mana and another one that's 4 mana. So everything else would have to be dirt cheap. It lets me hand off on their turn. Yeah, I mean, yes, you can hand off on their turn. That is totally true. But even then, I don't know if that's always going to be the best play. Like, sometimes you may just need to do stuff strategically for other reasons. Let's see. Defense. Witness protection, slip out the back, hold for ransom, Storm Chaser Drake. I don't know. There's definitely cards. Don't get me wrong. Like there are definitely things you can play, but you want more auras than spells for that previous build we were working on. And unfortunately, most of the auras don't really do anything for your creatures. They protect them. You know, they get you a little small bonus here or there, but they're not enough to really justify what's going down. You're thinking of pilfering during opponent's turn as well. I mean, I'm not against doing stuff like pilfers or other discard just to buy yourself some time. I think that is a legit plan. I might even consider going a little heavy-handed on the discard if you want to do some combination of duress and pilfer, just because you need to also clear their hand of some amount of removal, or else like it's not going to do any good to get to the end game and get these bigger creatures out, right? They're just going to die on sight. So you got to have something else in the in-between. I think the issue for me, and, you know, and while we're talking about cards, I'll probably just toss a bunch of stuff in here and remove them later. But I think one of the concerns for me is just what does the rest of the early game look like, right? Are we trying to play like Iconoclast and then play a bunch of instants and sorceries or whatever and build around that? That's not a bad idea. Is there a particular planeswalker we want 1 or 2 of to help fill the gap in between? I mean, I think there's some things we could probably make work. However, though, the other problem we're going to run into is it's going to be more black heavy than red heavy. Admittedly, though, I guess it's fine because we don't need our other cards until turn 5 or 6, so we can just play some number of multi-lands to try to fix that. basically all sorceries. I don't know if you want all sorceries though. Like I get it from this is the theme of the deck sort of thing, but to say I'd rather just have sorcery removal over just saying like I just want to play grasp or go for the throat or whatever is probably not the right decision, because when you don't have Najal, it's gonna suck a lot, right? You're just gonna be tapping on your turn. You could trigger handoff at instant with bombardment too. Trigger handoff. Oh, you're saying if we have a bombardment in play, then we could do it. That is true. That is true. If we have some other instance, yeah, that's a thing we could do. The problem is though, what will we be giving our opponent, right? And I think that's one of the reasons I kind of like the idea of Iconoclast is we can get some 1/1s and we could just give that to the opponent and draw a card, but we're only drawing one card. Actually, no, we wouldn't get any because it's the cost of the thing, right? It's not even the power. Yeah. So you wouldn't even get anything for a token. So tokens are no good. Nerdstrong, how's it going? So yeah, that's the issue there. It doesn't do enough. Getting the tokens is a neat idea, but handing off a token doesn't do anything. So yeah, I guess that's my problem with handoff. Like, unless we're doing something with Solkanar, it doesn't do anything for the rest of the deck. I think that's what I'm thinking about right now. It's like, what things would I want to give my opponent that I get any significant value off of? Like, maybe I give them some O4s or something, like stuff with 0 power that I already got the value out of, but maybe I hand it off and I get 2 or 3 cards. Right? That's something. Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. There's a bunch of cards in blue, red, and black we could play, but my issue right now is just like, what does handoff do when we don't have Solkanar? Right? Because that is one of the real issues right now. Is if we don't have Solkanar in play, then, or to some extent Najal, but realistically, if we don't have Solkanar, like, we don't have anything we really want to give the opponent. And the things we would, is it worth it to pay 4 mana to get 2 or 3 cards at best and give them a permanent, where we could just spend the blue mana and just for 4 mana, there's a bunch of ways we could draw 2 or 3 cards. You know what I'm saying? Like, the upside to the handoff isn't all that much. Kenyatta, thank you so much. You didn't have to do that, but thank you. It's so much appreciated. And that is a cool, I didn't realize they had those stickers on there. That's awesome. Using Jura, getting into play big artifacts and handing them off like supply drop. Then opponent can draw a card, but they have to pay 4. Here's the problem. Now we're starting to just list a lot of bad cards. Any benefit, target creature you control gets +2/+2. Yeah, see, the problem is this card's not good though. Like, I think that's the issue. It's like, if you're having to, here's the thing I want to caution people about in deck building, because this comes up a lot, even for myself. I are in power level, so you're probably not going to have the advantage you want anyway. And then on the times you don't get different parts together, then your deck's just going to perform poorly. Like right now, that's what I'm saying. That's kind of the issue with handoff, right? Like, if we don't have Solkanar, handoff is basically a dead card. Unless we have something else, and I don't know what. Like I said, I probably have to do a search for, like, I don't know. We look like power equals 0, maybe, to just see if there's like some non-threatening things we could give the opponents. Oh, I guess I need power equals 0, and I need it to be a creature. Maybe that'll help the filter. I don't know. It's like, oh, and I guess it needs to be black, blue, or red as well. All right. So, like, there's some of those things. Like, I mean, like, well, no, that just copies a target. Yeah, that doesn't do much either. I would just like, maybe there's something that we could give the opponent that doesn't hurt us. But even then, I don't know if it's worth it. There's stuff like this. You know, we can give them an 0/3 or something. But you don't want to give your opponent anything that has a chance of being any real value, right? Extraction Specialist, reanimation with handoff to enable reanimated card. But why wouldn't I just keep my Extraction Specialist? Like, it still has lifelink. It's still a 3/2. Like, I would rather just keep the extraction specialist. Like, why spend whatever 6 mana, 7 mana to just get a 2 or 3 power creature back out of the graveyard? Like, that's highly inefficient. Do you really want to play off? Do you want to play Diabolic Intent? No, that's not the issue. Was this was a suggestion from viewers of like, can we even play Fateful Handoff? Like, I think that's the real issue. Is I don't think you know what I feel like? I feel like Fateful Handoff is a plant for a future set. Like, there's going to be something that's, I don't know, like Liliana's whatever that got reprinted a while back. That like, you get 4 choices and then you lose the game or whatever, right? Something like that may exist that then Handoff becomes a real card. But I think as it is, I mean, because here's the reality. Even playing this to give the opponent the Sulkanar so I get it back still isn't that great for 2 reasons. One, you still have to have Handoff sit in your hand for the first 3 turns or whatever Sulkanar's out so you can realize the value. And then even if you go to do all that, your opponent still might just kill Sulkanar. You know what I mean? After all that, and they're just not enough to be there. Hand off a twin shot sniper. Isn't that the one that just deals 2 and is like a 2/3? Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's not a bad card to hand out, but again, we're just handing things of random value to opponent, and we're playing subpar cards to justify all this. You know what I mean? Like, this comes back to my point a second ago. We're trying to justify a lot of bad cards to make one other mediocre to bad card work, and like, and the thing we're doing isn't even that powerful, right? If we're gonna play a mid-level card, we have to be trying to find like the biggest best thing you can do with it, because you're going to lose a significant number, and not significant, but at least a non-zero insignificant number of games to having this card in your hand and it just being terrible. You know what I mean? So the times that doesn't happen, you need the payoff to be really big. And I don't feel like so far anything I've thought of or anything anybody suggested is big enough to make it worth it. Handoff is a poop version of Beantown Bullies. It makes it worse since you don't have horrible cards to give away. Yeah, exactly. Like, there's just not enough. Like, the cards have to be like, if there were just like walls, like, I don't know, like Wall of Blossoms or something, where like I play it, I draw a card, and now it does nothing, and I could play Handoff, get a couple cards, and give that to my opponent, and I know there's no downside for me. Even that would be worth it, right? Because I'm getting a value out of the card initially, and then I can give it away knowing it doesn't harm me. You know what I mean? Like, in those cases, I think, but we don't even have that level of stuff right now, really. This is probably a terrible idea, but give opponents a shakedown heavy. You're drawing 6 cards. There's bound to be an answer to remove it. Whew. Well, it's to mana value. It's not power of the card. So you would get 3 cards to give them. Yeah. Ooh, I don't know if I'd want to do that. Because then if you don't have the kill spell, then your opponent's just getting a card every turn. Yeah, I don't like that. If it was power, I'm with you. I would probably be way more into it. Because then paying 4 mana to get 6 cards and then just taking a chance on drawing a removal out of those 6 is probably reasonable, and I'd be willing to take that chance. But for just power, I feel for 4 mana we can get 2 or 3 cards a few different ways anyway. You'd have the combo Handoff with a bounce spell on a creature or artifact that you want to gain. Yeah, that's also true, right? If there was something like that, or some world where a creature is getting negatives every turn or something, but you have to be able to negate giving your opponent that card, I think, is the issue. Or the card has to be harmless as a whole to begin with. And I don't know if there's enough of those, which is kind of tough. I feel like there will be something. Usually when we get a card like this, sometime in the next 2 or 3 sets, there's a card that comes up, you're like, this works well with that, right? Diabolic Intent still might be interesting besides sacrificing Solkanar. Do you try Arcane Copy? You know, intent is actually more interesting, I will admit, as a way to just guarantee you get rid of Solkanar. Because even if it gets countered, like, you can make sure Solkanar's not on the table anymore. Because that's part of the cost, I believe, on Diabolic Intent. Diabolic Intent. Yeah, it's additional cost to cast it. So no matter what, you're like, hey, I'm getting rid of the Solkanar so you don't get it. And then if they counter it, fine. If they don't, then you get to go search for something. Like, so that is actually a reasonable use here where you don't care. Or again, if we wanted to build the deck around something with Solkanar and play Iconoclast or whatever, we can also sacrifice the tokens if it came down to it. Boarded windows, so it opens up options of giving them 1/1s. Man, see, this is a card as well. Again, we're trying to justify. Let me say board window. Why does that not? Oh, because it's artifact. Duh. There we go. Creatures attacking you get -1 at the beginning of each end step if you were dealt 4 or more card turn. Yeah, I'm not doing it. Like, it's fine, but yeah, we can do better. You can do better. Hey Bruno, how's it going? Yeah, border windows isn't bad to work with Fate, but honestly, I think it's just trying too hard to make Fateful work. What I'm seeing with this, let's see, attacks you can pay 2. If you do, when you cast your next instant or sorcery this spell this turn, you can copy it. You know, man, this feels so close to being all right. I just don't think we can do it. Yeah, this even only puts cards from your hand in the battlefield. It's not like it even goes in searches or anything. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of like possibility, but the best things we can do just aren't powerful. And I think that would be my lesson to give today if there was one. Is that if you're going to play a bunch of mediocre cards, like your payoff has to be worth it. Like when we get combos together, we get these 2 or 3 cards together, the end result has to be really powerful. And I don't feel like any of the stuff, even stuff I've mentioned, I just don't feel is powerful enough to justify this. Whether we're talking about playing Najal, playing Joria, because then it's like, okay, well, now if we're going to play Jorah, now we got to have some number of artifacts to make this work. All right, well, if we have a bunch of artifacts, then Najal's going to be worse because those are not instants or sorceries that you can copy, right? Okay, fine. And if we're going to play them, are they worth even handing off with handoff? Or should we just be playing something that, like we said, like Diabolic Intent, that just lets us get rid of the thing we would be handing over anyway, right? I think that's the issue. If we use Vesuvian Diplomancy, technically you can start using cards that are good, and having 2 of is better than 1 of. It's more of issue of Diplomancy itself just being really, really slow. And the cards you would possibly play alongside it. Arcane Proxy. Why would we want to do that, though? Like, that's a real body. Like, why would we want to hand them an Arcane Proxy? See, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the other issue, right? Yes, we can give them a thing, but Arcane Proxy can be a real card. Like, we don't want to give that to the opponent. Yeah, I don't think that's what I think if I were to do something, like I said, if and if you don't want to be normal Grixis, because we already know there's a bunch of good Grixis decks as it is, I would be more leaning toward Iconoclast, some number of spells, Diabolic Intent, so I can sack the tokens or do something with the tokens. And then if you want to play a Solkanar or 2 or whatever, with the option of sacrificing it to like Intent or whatever, I think that's fine. Give them Teresian Mindbreaker, and then after they kill us, Brilliant Restoration. That's amusing. Doesn't Fateful work with Decayed? Uh, no, because I mean, like you could, but you don't get anything. The only things with Decayed, I think, are the tokens zombies, and those don't have a cost. So you would draw no cards and give your opponent a 2/2 that would die when it attacks you. Silky, you don't have to keep spinning. I appreciate it. I really, really do. And it's really going to help a lot since I had to help a lot of people during the holidays. But like you don't like I really do appreciate it, but you don't have to keep giving me the $10. Do I think picking some underused color combo like Abzan or Teamer might be a good starting point for a new deck. Yes, but I tend to not try to think about decks we're starting in terms of color combinations. I usually try to think about concepts or cards or, along those lines, and then let the others fill in based on what we need. Um, Mana Rig, that's one I haven't played much with because, like, I've put together some Abzan things. Yeah, we'll discard all those. These have been good thought exercises, though. I don't, and this is the thing too. I always try to tell people, like, when you see a deck that makes it into a video, I've usually done some exercise like this for realistically, like, sometimes half a day, 3 or 4 hours, where I put a deck together, maybe played 15, 20 games with it, and it's garbage, right? Okay, cool. Scrap it, try the next thing. Scrap it, try the next thing. Oh, okay, this one, we won a couple games, cool. Let's start recording and see how it does or whatever, right? So I often caution people from the idea of thinking that we as creators just only make bangers, right? That's just not true. Like we experiment, we test things or whatever, and then we eventually land on a good deck, or at least a playable deck, right? There are a lot of other ideas that just don't go anywhere for us. I mean, nobody wants to talk about that, but it's true. And this is kind of the reasons I want to do this type of stream every once in a while, is so people get to see the idea of not every idea is great, right? And we don't just only hit home runs. Like the reality is people honestly, I think there's more. I think in this last hour, we have talked about more concepts, deck strategies, why stuff works, why it doesn't, whatever. And people can apply that learning so much better to the next time y'all go build decks than if you watch one of my gameplay videos and just say, "Oh, that deck's cool, I'll just play that deck." Right? There was no real discussion on how we got there, what was A to Z, what would we change in the future or not. Like, you can't fit all that in necessarily into a gameplay video, right? So people are just going, I want the next deck that looks interesting or fun or good or whatever, and boom, off to the races. When in reality, if you got to see more decks that failed, like today's video, it's not going to perform as well as my other videos, and I 100% know that. But I wanted to do a video where I know people like this idea of self-mill. There's cards in here people want to try to build with. But I did the work. I took the hit to just say, like, hey, I don't recommend you play this deck. I don't think it's that good. While it's entertaining and amusing when it hits, it's just not that good. And that's okay. But I think people need to see that and go through it, so it saves you time and money for not trying to go through those efforts of all those failed things. Your pros are getting Proxy, but because of handoff, Proxy is an all-around good card. Yeah, for sure. I have another deck concept. Would you care to hear it? I haven't tested it yet because I'm still ruminating, but I should jump up and take it online. Sure, and you can just post it in the chat. You don't have to do a $10 super chat. I appreciate it, but you don't need that. But you can just put it in the chat. Didn't get a chance to watch the Simic Artifact deck video. Did Battery Bearer make it in the possible ramp option? It did not. I tried it in a couple of different builds initially, and it didn't even make the cut to the video portion. It's just, for its cost, unfortunately, if you play something that's 4 mana right now, it has to be more impactful. And that just wasn't quite enough. Partly because you think about the things that are in decks at 4 mana right now, there's like Halana Nalena, Shieldred, whatever, like just really strong things people are playing. So if your thing is like, well, I have a 3/4, and it might help me cast something that costs 6 next turn. I hope that thing that costs 6 is really, really good. You know what I mean? And then if it dies, it's like, okay, well, now I invested all this, and I didn't even really get anything out of it. So it's tough. And it's 2 colors. It's like, yeah. I wanted it to be better. I really did. I gave it a try, though. I put it in the list. It just didn't make the cut. I've been messing around with the Sultai self-mill with Lurgoyf and the other XX. I saw it once in a game and really liked it, but there's just too much graveyard hate. I had a self-mill deck today, Bruno. It's like you didn't even see my YouTube video. It's fun. I have some cool concepts in there. Maybe you can find some that you want to steal and put into your build, and it might work better. I thought it was fine, but At best, I think you're a 40-60 deck. I don't even think you're on the winning side of that. I think you're going to do some powerful, interesting things, but I don't think they're going to be consistently powerful enough is the problem. Fateful would be fine with unearthed or blitz creatures if you have the mana for it. Well, yeah, but that's the problem though. Like at that point, I could just play better cards. I don't need to have Fateful in my hand just sitting around the handoff doing nothing while I'm waiting to get that unearthed thing or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and then you're also talking about the unearthed things you want are going to be pretty high cost, right? You're going to be paying 3, 4, 5 mana already, plus another 4 for the handoff. Like that's just too much to ultimately get. I don't know, 3 cards, 4 cards. Like that's just so much. And while the handoff is in your hand, could you have just gotten a better board state? Had that been a thing that tutored a thing, drew a card on its own, killed a creature, right? It could be a bunch of other things and just be better. Yeah, at that point, might as well run Transmogrant. Yeah, that's fair. Totally fair. You're a free-to-play player, and usually I net deck because I can't afford to try new decks because of my lack of wild cards. Can only try with the new cards I have, which isn't optimal to do a new concept deck. All right. I'm not sure. Like, I appreciate the comment. I'm not sure what to do with that. Currently building a Golgari deck with Urg to filter what goes to the graveyard, like Titan or Flesh Gorger. That's interesting. Let's take a look at Urg. I forgot that was a Magic card. I do remember seeing it. What do I not or do I like about Urg? Urg has power equal to the number of lands in our graveyard. At the beginning of your upkeep, surveil 1. Sacrifice a land, I gain 2 life. I don't know what I would do with this. I like the idea. Like, this would be a cool card to have into a deck. But I don't... I mean... Maybe if there was... I mean, I feel like the problem is it always comes back to Slowkirk or something, right? Like, and Slowkirk means I have to add blue to make it work. Let's see. What are some decks you have been wanting to play or build but just can't quite figure them out? Piles. Like, I literally do that every day. Like, I don't even have a list for you. Like, you can ask me a specific deck and I can yay or nay it if I've even thought about it. You came in late, but is giving opponents an extra mana a turn by giving them a relic of legends worth drawing 3 cards. Wow, that's a good question. Would it be? Man. Yes and no. Like, if it was against an aggro deck, then I'd probably give them the 1 and not care that much, especially if it's, say, like, I don't know, some type of mono red or maybe that's it. I don't even know if I want to give it to any other color. I was just thinking about that. Man, giving somebody a mana is actually powerful, believe it or not. It doesn't sound like a lot, but ooh, how would I feel about that? Giving an opponent a mana in exchange for 3 cards for 4 mana. That's probably fair, though. I mean, to be honest, it's not like the worst thing you could do. But, man, I wouldn't feel good about it. I'd want to give them something less threatening, realistically. Tameo Safekeeping is the best card in Magic. Changed my mind. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's a pretty good Magic card. I wish you could stay longer. Getting late here. Hey, no problem, Double A. Thanks for stopping in at all. I appreciate everybody who stops in to chat. Just trying to crack the card. No, nothing wrong with that. And that's the thing. I think it's neat to think about that, right? Because even when you asked it, it wasn't like it was an automatic no. It was just, yeah, that's some fair value, both sides. Like, maybe that's okay. I don't know. It's like, that's almost like one of those plays. It would depend on the state of the game and what the metagame looked like, right? Like, do I think my opponent can utilize that 1 mana? Like, okay, then I probably don't want to give it to him. But if, I don't know, like I said, you're playing mono red and we're on like turn 5 or 6 or 7, I'm like, yeah, cool, you can have another mana, I don't care. You know what I mean? The odds of that impacting me are going to be so low, I can have it. But against something like even Mono green could be the difference of them casting a second spell off of the Augur of Autumn or something or not, right? And that's a little bit scary. So it would really depend. But I don't think that's a terrible thought. I think your mind's in the right place. But yeah, I'm thinking about Urg here. Spawn of Turg, which is one of the hilarious names. Is there actually okay, hold on. There's another frog, right? It happens to be blue-green, but there is another one. Actually, I guess technically this is a frog too, or makes a frog. This guy is what I was thinking. Whenever it attacks, you mill 3. When a permanent card is put to... Oh, but it exiles, right? That wouldn't work. Well, yeah, these two don't combo well. That sucks. Because you need the lands to be in the graveyard for this to trigger. So that doesn't really work. Now, this could work with Slowkirk. I think this could work. Right? Like, this would be a thing. So then if you were making sure you were putting lands in the graveyard, then Slowkirk would trigger. And that could actually work. Oh my goodness, Silky! Seriously, like you don't. I am genuinely 100% appreciative. I don't want to sound like I'm not. Seriously, like that's entirely too generous. Like it really is. Like I super thankful, honestly, and it makes me feel great right now. But you didn't have to do that. All right. But anyway, let me put this in here. Let me erase this. We'll come back to Urg in a bit. But that does have me thinking. I haven't really thought about putting Urg into a deck. I might come back and try that soon. All right, let's go Curse of Silence. This is the white one, right? Yeah. And you've got Clawing Torment. By the way, in general, if you ever want to make a super chat and just link me to a deck list, I can just download the deck list and put it in here. Underdog, which is fine. I kind of assume there's going to be on a lot of lists. Bitter Reunion. I do not know what's going on with this list so far. This is going to be interesting as it comes together because I'm just looking at cards as they come up. Curse of Forsaken Faith. Is that the one that you get to draw cards? No, that's Curse of Hospitality. What's this one? Whenever enchantment player casts a spell other than the first spell, it deals 2 damage to them. I don't know how good that is. I don't know how many people are casting multiple spells against me a lot of the time, honestly. Astronomer? I'm going to give you credit. These are cards that I have not given a lot of thought to, so I appreciate that somebody's at least loving these cards. Because, you know, cards are there for everyone. They don't all have to be great. All right. Lantern, Flare. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm going to need an explanation in a second what we're trying to do with this, because so far I'm not seeing it. Oh, whoa, wait. There's one. Oh, yeah, we already know there's white cards. There's a Curse and Lantern in here. All right. The Poet. I feel like there's going to be better cards we can put in here. I think that's where we're starting to feel like now that I'm looking at it. I feel like we can do better. Oh, no, we already have that. We get the Poet. Takasha. That's the other one. Wait. Takasha's Welcome. I was like, because like Takasha's 4 colors. Or at least Bant colors. Braids as well. Man, this thing's trying to go deep. What's happening here? This is a pile. Now, Archangel is a truly good Magic card. That's actually a good one. Correct that there are 4. And there's 2 Liza. All right. Wow. This is a pile of things. Girl not combos well with Takasha. That's amusing. Really want Braids to work here. All right. Halana and Elena, what are some cards that currently with maximize it? Literally everything. Literally, Halana and Elena makes every card better after it. Like, you just get at minimum 2 counters and haste. Like, if you play against any Gruul deck and they already have the advantage of life and they stick a Lana, that's one of the scariest things possible, because everything after that is going to be 4 or 5 power, maybe even 6 power, and it's going to have haste, and you've got to deal with it every time. Like, Lana is just good. Don't really have removal in this deck, so that's issue 1. We will work on that. All sagas and enchantments are playable from the graveyard. Well, they leave and come back, so technically yes. Playing Bat Angels with Ascendancy, and it's been doing great. Yeah, Ascendancy's fine. I don't have a problem with that. We've had Ascendancy in a few builds. All right, so what are we trying to do here? We've got Curse of Silence, which you can name a card. Your opponent has to spend more to cast that card. Then if they do, you get to draw. Clawing Torment. As long as Enchanted Permanent is a creature, it gets -1/-1 and can't block. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose a life. Alright. Lantern Flare is just a removal card, I guess, technically. Tenacious Underdogs. Bitter Reunion lets you discard to draw 2. Things get haste. This just exiles a thing. Your opponent takes damage. Whenever enchanted player casts a spell, this is the one I would probably cut. Because here's part of the problem too. You're also playing stuff like Curse of Silence and Cemetery Gatekeeper that is discouraging your opponent from playing more things. So this card is further encouraging your opponent from playing more things. So the fact you're doing that means this probably isn't going to trigger very often. So it's taking up space, when in reality, it might just be better for this to be an extra Curse of Silence and an extra 2 Cemetery Gatekeeper. Because then you at least have something you can attack with if your opponent's choosing not to play anything else. You know, it would probably be where I would go with that. Because while this is neat, I mean, this doesn't really do enough. Now, if we were still in a world with like the mill decks from last season that were like playing a couple cards to draw and then they were playing a thing and copying it or whatever, like this could be finishing damage, because this could get 4 to 6 damage on the opponent because they had a lot of turns where they cast 2 spells. But right now we're in a standard where the only decks that are really going to be casting multiple spells are probably something like Mono Red or the Soldiers deck, and they don't really care about taking 2 damage. Right? Because their whole job is to be the aggressor. So if their life total's at like 6 when they die, they don't care. Right? They're just trying to put pressure on you. So the decks you want this against, or the decks that this will trigger against, I don't think we're doing enough damage to them in the current build to really punish them for taking that damage. So I would probably do without this. And some number more of those. I guess I said you cast an artifact or enchantment from your graveyard. Type of creature we don't control. I think my problem is there's just a lot of things here that just aren't great. Right? Like, Clawing Torment is cute. It can kill a 1 toughness thing. There are a few things we can kill with this. But your opponent losing 1 a turn isn't really doing much. I mean, it's an enchantment we can get back. So I get you want to have some number of enchantments if you want to play Nariko, just so you can keep playing stuff out of the yard. That makes sense. But the problem with Nariko is just a 3/2. And we don't really have a way to protect it or make it bigger. So, unfortunately, she's going to play one thing out of the graveyard like 1 time. And that's kind of it. In most cases. I mean, playing against a mid-range control deck, it's possible they don't have a thing to block it or something, and that's cool. And this can't be hit by Wandering Emperor, which is kind of nice. Though they can just make a 2/2 and block. So, I don't know. Attack with Underdog. Subduer taps a creature. And you can play Bitter Reunion to loot, as well as the Astronomer to loot. So you're talking about playing Bitter Reunion and loot, and then you play the Astronomer. If it's near night, becomes night. It's whenever day or night becomes, you discard 2. I mean, sure. I mean, that's a thing. Yeah. I mean, the underdog is a warrior, so I mean that's viable. Playing drag to the bottom. Drag to the bottom would be dangerous for our own cards. I don't know if we want to do that. Like, that's a little tough. Oh, sure. No, I understand. You want other things to attack, but unfortunately, sometimes that's all you have, and you need to attack. I mean, like that's just the reality we get set in sometimes. The problem, because the problem is otherwise you don't really have any other warriors. I mean, you've got this as a samurai, but it's just a 3/2. This is not a warrior or samurai. So, I mean, obviously we can max out underdogs or whatever. That's fine. But that's kind of all you really have. You know what I mean? Like, this is going to be really tough because without underdog, like, you don't trigger any of these other things. I don't even know if I'd want to put a Wrath in. I would, like, you're playing all the colors for good spot removal, honestly. Like, if there were enchantments that dealt damage when they came into play, or I mean, killed a creature or targeted creature somehow, like that would be more enticing. I think. Like you can put the shakedown heavy in, but I didn't want to be over. Heavy is legit. That's a thing. I don't hate it. I'm just trying to think of like I don't like on these types of things. I try not to take the deck completely away from what the originator wants it to be. But I'd almost start by just saying like, what other warriors are there? And saying like, is there something here we can do and maybe take advantage of these? And then we have to come back and look at other samurai because like this is probably one of the best samurai. Honestly, you just give something lifelink and you can protect a creature. I mean, I would play this over a bunch of other cards. Not saying it's great by any stretch, but I mean, you give something lifelink whenever it attacks alone. I mean, this and it has an upside of being able to save something from a sweeper or whatever. That's more enticing to me than a lot of other stuff that we have in the list. Like I would play this over Cemetery Gatekeepers because while that is nice incremental damage, it could also backfire and hurt us, and it's not like we have a bunch of ways to gain life, so that's already a problem. So yeah, I'd probably go another way with that. But braids, I see trying to work here, trying to like, hey, we can sack the enchantments, we can use Norika, get the enchantment back, we get some cards off the braids, maybe do something with an enchantment. Like I see where we're going. So I think there's the beginnings of something here, right? The concern though is I am not sure how this. Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess at least you have underdog to try to get something post sweeper or whatever against the control things. So that's an option. But yeah, let's look at other warriors. Let's see what we got available here. So I mean, like I said, Shakedown Heavy's a warrior, so I ain't mad at it. If you want to play that, I could easily be talked into that. I think at some point we'll have to decide what enchantments as a whole are worth it, though. I think that's gonna be the issue. Liza is the only sweeper protection. Sure, that's what I'm saying. If we had the samurai though, the fox samurai, we do get some help there. Randomly, this card's a warrior. It's actually really good, and that's kind of awesome too, making something not block. Right? Like, I actually don't hate this. I think this is almost a reasonable option. Just being able to attack your opponent can't block, and it's like, okay, cool. I get to trigger all my stuff. Uh, Facebreaker is also a warrior. I kind of like that in here too, especially if you got braids, because now you can start making treasure that you can. I actually kind of like that. Let's play a couple of those. I think that could work out. That's a real thing. Ooh, if we were playing green, ugh, I like that card so much. But let me clear up this filter so we're not messing around with cards we're not going to cast. Let's see. Oh, is that it? That's it. Okay, there's not a lot to pick from. All right. Well, Are there red, black, white ones? I mean, this guy's a samurai warrior. Whenever samurai warrior you control attacks alone, it gets +1 for each samurai or warrior you control. Nah, not for 5 mana. I do think Ryu is interesting, or Raiju, I should say. Hi from New Zealand. Do you know, here's a fun story. I don't know if I ever shared this on stream. People who follow my podcast know this. But most of my viewers when I first started streaming on Twitch were Aussies and Kiwis. True story. And that was by intent because I decided I was going to stream in a later time zone in the US, which made it just after work and on the other side of the planet. So a lot of my early viewers that. So I have on my merchandise, I have a playmat that's kind of dedicated to that with kind of like a bushman with a big sword or a big knife and everything else as part of the artwork to kind of as a tribute to that because a lot of my early viewers were from down that way. I actually found out from them that it's okay for me to call you Kiwis and y'all aren't offended by that because I didn't know. I thought I was going to be a dumb American and offend somebody. Clawing Remorse is to ensure opponents can't block. Yeah, I still don't know if I want that though. Do we have a window to sacrifice unearthed cards to braids? Or does it sacrifice before the braids trigger? Let's see. Braid says at the beginning of your end step, you can sacrifice. Oh, yeah, you totally can because it's worded the same as tokens that die at the end of turn. So, yeah, you could totally do that. Yeah, that's an actual viable thing you can do. Righty says if you control attacks alone or untaps, you get the first combat, get an additional combat step after that phase. Ryu's not bad. Ryu's not bad. It's at least intriguing if we're going to be going down this road anyway. Because, like, amusingly, Ryu with, like, a shakedown heavy means you can get 2 cards a turn. I don't know if that's what you want to do, but it's a thing, right? Or you could just, like, attack with shakedown heavy the first time by itself, and then you could attack with everything else the second time as the first non-combat phase. Yeah, so you could do that, too. That's a thing. Like that's possible. I don't know. I like the idea. I don't know if we'll ever do it, but it's neat. Takasha's welcome. Bitter reunion. Yeah, I mean, I like the yeah. Astronomer just doesn't feel good. Dick rolls pretty well against Sparky, but yeah, oh yeah, well, yeah. Sparky, so many things beat Sparky. I don't put that on much. I just do all my testing on the ladder and just blow up my rank if I feel like it. Like I don't really worry about Sparky too much. Let's see. Body Dropper doesn't really do much. Sacrifice one or more other creatures, deals 2 damage to each opponent. Doesn't really do too much. All right, so not as many warriors as I thought were in here. Let's look at Samurai. Because obviously we have the legendary gold Samurai, right? This guy. If an attacking creature causes a triggered ability of permanent control, that ability triggers an additional time. So we could go with this. Oh, wait. If we attack with Shakedown Heavy with this, your opponent has to give you 2 cards? Whenever it attacks, if any player may have you draw a card if they do. Oh, no, because the first one removes it from combat, so it doesn't really matter. So the second one wouldn't have to resolve, and it's already not attacking. Never mind, that would have been slick. Your opponent has to give you 2 cards if you attack that. That would have been kind of funny. But yeah, it doesn't really do it. That's pretty sad. Yeah. I think the only other Samurai it has is probably this one. I think that's actually real. I don't know how much I like Subduer, but I get it. It's kind of part of the plan, right, of what we're building. So I don't mind it. Problem is, I have to cut some things now because I put too many cards in here. And we're down to Bitter Reunions and Curse of Silence as the enchantments we get to play. No, we do. We still have Takasha's Welcome, so that's fine. So we have some number of enchantments that are worth it. It's almost like would we rather have Raiju or Ishin? Though the thing about Raiju though is interesting is because at least by itself, you know, post sweeper, it can still be pretty impactful. So I don't want to turn my nose up at that. But I'm also trying to figure out like how can we try to maximize the whole braids situation with getting the enchantments back into play. Like there's a lot happening here. And I don't know what the best answer is. I think, okay, I think Narika is better than the Subduer. Even though getting a tap of things nice or whatever, I think this is just more powerful in the sense that it also has vigilance. But man, and we still don't have any removal in here. Are there any enchantments that deal damage or exile a creature? I mean, there's white ones that exile, but they just put them back into play, so we don't necessarily want to do that. Especially if we're going to sacrifice it and just give them the thing back. That's kind of bad, right? We don't want that. What enchantments are there worth playing? I think that's the real answer. If there is anything, I don't know if there is, that would make it worth it. You could turn this into a pretty decent Warriors cheap removal. That is possible, but now we're getting away. Like at that point, then we have to go back and cut the braids and everything else because we're just taking out some of the purpose for some of these other cards to exist, unfortunately. And I was trying to avoid that to some extent if we could. But I don't know if we're going to be able to, which is kind of sad. Yeah, I was hoping there was going to be something else. Actually, no, this is when every creature dies. Yeah, that doesn't quite do it. This is make a... Oh, you give each opponent a thing and then you flip over to the backside. Yeah, don't like that either. That doesn't help us. Curse of Leeches. Some people like this. It's not really been my jam, especially since we have so many other things at 3 we're probably trying to play. Yeah, the problem with Borrowed Time and Touch of Spirit Realm, though, is like we don't ever want to sacrifice those, right? Because we just be giving the opponent the thing right back into play, and then we try to play it out of the graveyard again. So it doesn't really help us. Like and you'd be removing, in some cases, removing something that would just be giving them value again. So that doesn't really line up with what we're trying to do. So I was hoping there were some enchantments I forgot about that maybe came into play, dealt some amount of damage. I don't know, gave a creature -2/-2 or something, and there would be some other value to be had, but I don't know if there is. Yeah. That's tough. This actually is not bad. Destroy all things that cost 1 or less. So that's pretty cool. Gets rid of tokens and such. It's viable. Then you exile graveyards, which is bad because we wouldn't be able to get stuff out of a graveyard. So, I don't know. Maybe we can't even play that. Spirit Sister's Call is kind of cool. Could let you replay certain enchantments or get creatures back if you wanted to. But it might be it. Yeah, there's just not a lot of choices. Not a lot of choices. Life at Tashiro. Yeah, this one's almost okay. That it gives something -1 until end of turn. So that's not the worst thing. But I don't know. No, I don't think we really need. I know what you're saying, the Twin Blades, but I don't know if that really fits. This is the case with the Samurai decks, though. I feel like this is a spot where Wizards was too safe. Was with both Samurai and Ninjas. I think is that and it's tough, right? Because I get it. You don't want those to necessarily dominate the format or whatever. But at the same time, both of those builds were going to be creature based. So if all the removal is solid anyway, like it didn't matter that much. And it was a little, and this, I commented on this in a video, but it was just sad because we all kind of know that Samurai and Ninjas were one of the reasons people enjoyed Kamigawa, right? That's kind of the whole motif behind it or whatever. And to have both of them be kind of mediocre to bad was very disappointing. At least one of them should have got special treatment or whatever. And what I thought was going to happen was that they were going to, once I saw they weren't that powerful in the main set, I'm like, oh, okay, they'll be the ones in the commander decks that'll set them off or whatever. And like, there really weren't any that made them that much better. So that was disappointing too. Take advantage of the haste from a union with the big beater. Maybe, but that's kind of my problem. Like, I don't even know if the reunion really matters. Like, we're putting stuff in the graveyard, but even that's only good if we have Narika out. If not, we just put stuff in the graveyard to draw into something. But if that is, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something. Like if that's Fable of Kiki Jiki, are we just better off, right? You get a 2/2 and you get cards, and then you get to copy some of your dudes later, right? That's probably just better. Long Reach of Night, that's not a bad choice. Yeah, it's this is tough. This is tough. But I mean, even if we had 3 Fable, like, did I really make it any better? You know what I mean? Like I mean, being able to get back Fables out of the yard's kind of slick. That's a cool little interaction. That's neat, right? Uh, what if we do this? Well, one, we got to cut some cards, right? Because we got to get some lands in here. One Raiju, one Liza, because these are on the upper end of our cost. That gets us room for 23 lands. I don't ever play with Lantern Flare, so maybe it's fine and worth it, and we at least get some. We got to cut Curse of Silence. The problem is, how many enchantments do we have? Just a handful? And we have 10 enchantments, so if we cut those, we have 6. At that point, is it worth it to have Narika or not? And then how much of a samurai deck are we? Yeah, Fable's really good, and Darius. I wish I could argue with you, but the card is good. Like that's real. Oh gosh. I will admit though, I am at least a little bit intrigued in playing some more Lantern Flare because I don't put it in anything. So I don't hate it. Deals damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain that much life. X the number of creatures you control. Or you can just cleave X. We have Selfless Samurai, and we still have Narika. So we haven't abandoned the artifact or the enchantment thing just yet. So that's not bad. We can get cards off of Takasha's Welcome. So that's a thing. We can still do that. Shakedown Heavy, still a real card. Professional Face Breaker, still a thing. This is a weird pile, man. Like I don't know if it's gonna get us what we want. Oh no, this is fine. I don't, like the thing is, I don't mind this as a thought exercise of just like going through the effort and saying like, what can we do with these things? Like, is there a realistic option? All right. So I think what I want to do, let's look at enchantments. Actually, maybe don't even do that. Let's look at enchantments that cost 2 or less. Because if we want to cut the Curse of Silence, is there anything else that's worth it to play? What is the return a permanent you control to its owner's hand if it has an earth? All right. This is an interesting card, but probably not one we can play. This gives a creature +1/+0. It has vigilance. If it dies, return this card to the battlefield transformed. Creature enchantment into the battlefield tap. Probably not the greatest thing. Yeah, I was looking to see just what other cheap stuff we could get away with here. +1/+1. You can cast it from our graveyard. That's interesting. The 1/1 enchantment that plays top, then you can sack it, and can't remember. All right, we'll look at what red ones are. Let's see. Now, we could just play this. And then getting a +1 on a samurai or an underdog or whatever, like, that's fine. And then getting this back out of the graveyard isn't the worst thing because it is still a point of damage. Matter of fact, there is even a weird scenario where we could play this and then every other turn be putting +1/+1s on things. You know, like that's possible. I mean, like that's not terrible. Like I could be talked into that being anything. This is kind of cute too. A thing gets menace, and then whenever it dies, you draw a card, or it deals combat damage. You also get to make a treasure. So like this could be worth considering as well. But it's when the creature dies, you draw a card, not when this goes to the graveyard. So that's a thing. Yeah, this is cute if you just want to turn. Oh no, this is only while it's enchanted though. Never mind. That doesn't do enough. Yeah, we could go with Kamano. I mean, it's something, and it's another body, so it kind of keeps us on pace for doing what we're trying to do. Um, I would probably cut one Narika. Man, we got to find room for a couple more removal cards, though, I think is the issue here. Maybe Facebreaker has to go. It's neat. I don't know how much of the treasure we're going to need until we get, like, way late. But Lantern Flare lets us gain life. So, I mean, I guess maybe we still do something with the mana. And I would say cards are no longer necessary now that we've kind of gone around the pool with the build. But now we get Fable that can get cards. We still have Takasha's Welcome. Fable occasionally will make an artifact that we could sacrifice anyway with Braids, but we're probably just sacrificing enchantments. Okiba enchantment. Okay, that makes sense too. Okiba drains their opponent for 1 and then makes a 2/2. So like that's reasonable. I don't hate that. That makes a lot of sense. I would probably be honestly in your previous build. It probably made more sense to play Okiba Gang because there wasn't as much red mana. Now that we're already going to be playing Fables and stuff anyway, it's not that big a deal, I think, to play it now. But I think your head was in the right place. I would have probably done that too. Do we keep the Shakedown Heavy at 4 or not? I think that's the other question. I guess we go ahead. It's another way to possibly get cards. I wouldn't mind that too much. The only downside to the Shakedown, well, nah, we could at least try it. Let's at least try it. We're gonna call this just a samurai pile for now, because I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. All right, so now this means we could probably get away with. Man, this is probably gonna be another 61 card build because I'm just being greedy right now. But I feel like we need at least 2 other real removal cards. I might even cut to just 3 heavies, to be honest. We have a lot of things at 3. Because we got Narika, Takasha's Welcome, which we're probably going to want to play the Welcome before stuff a lot of the times anyway. Braids, Shakedown Heavy, Fable. Yeah, I think it's what we do. Wedding Announcement isn't a word. That's true. I do like Wedding Announcement, though. Really good, just in general. Just a quality Magic card. Also, with that and this together, you're guaranteed to get a card and a token every turn, which is kind of funny. Let's see. So that leaves us 26 spots. So we can get 2 removal things in here. Oh, Braids was the saga, not the creature. I don't know. I've been looking at Braids just being actual, like, braids. I think it's actually probably better than being the enchantment. You sacrifice a creature. If you do, each opponent discards card. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Target opponent may sacrifice a non-land, non-token permanent. If they don't, they lose 2 life and you draw a card. Yeah, I'd rather just have Braids. Like, I'd rather just block something or attack for 3 and possibly get more cards through Braids. And try to reuse our enchantments. Yeah, I'd rather just go with the creature. For the same cost, roughly. Obviously, there's not a black mana that does matter. But I would rather just roll with this and see what happens. Honestly. Because this is like, all right, I can sacrifice a creature and then my opponent discards, but we're not going to have that many things we really want to get rid of. And then return a creature sometimes is going to be useful, depending on what we have, but we also have Underdog that already comes back as it is. And then the last one is opponent can sacrifice a thing. If they don't, they lose 2, you draw a card. But, like, we could do that anyway with Braids, sacking an enchantment that we can just get back. So we're not gaining a lot by having this over Braids. Though, I never really paid a lot of attention. They actually made a pretty good enchantment that lines up very well with the creature. So credit to R&D. That's actually pretty slick. I will say, though, it is easier to cast being just 1 black mana on the cost. All right. So this being what it is. And we do still have Archangel of Wrath as pseudo removal. Let's keep that in mind, too. Like, we can use that to actually remove stuff. Braids is fantastic with blood tokens. I've been playing... Oh, yeah. And that's what I was saying here. Like, because we have enough enchantments we could sacrifice, we can consider that as a thing. If it's a turn where we can attack, get an enchantment back out, into turn, sacrifice that, try to do it again. Like, that's actually all right. Paragon... Yes, but then you have to pretty much cut like Ryu, probably braids, or not braids, probably the shakedown heavies. Something along those lines. Because you can't just keep cramming everything in the deck. Like, something's got to go. And we already know at least 2 slots are going to have to be dedicated to removal. So, as much as I do like the Sarah Paragon, and it works with a lot of things in this deck, so I'm not against it, I would say at that point, we just nix the shakedown heavy. And just say we have a bunch of other things on 3 anyway, we want to cast before it. We play like 2 Paragon, and then try to focus on ways to make things work positively for us. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a real way to add mana to help us out, so we don't have any ramp boosting abilities here in any way. But I'm not opposed to the Paragon. So this would open up 4 spaces, I think, if we want to do at least... if we do 24, that leaves 3 spaces for removal. That's fine, I suppose. And technically braids kind of sort of helps with that a little bit. So, I don't know. Well, yeah, I think this is probably close to the best we can do. I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to sit here figuring out, like, what removal we want to play. No, we've already done Mardu Angels, so I'm staying away from that. Like, we're not going to do that for sure. Let's try 3... you know what? Let's go 1 Fateful Absence. Or what if we did... Yeah, I'm just looking at like how much life gain we have. Samurai is going to possibly let us gain life. Braids doesn't have us gain life. It says opponent lose life. We do have Angels. You know what? Let's go ahead and play 2 Grasp. So we don't have to worry about artifact creatures. So then this gives us 2 Grasp, a Fateful Absence, 2 Lantern Flare, which we could pay extra for Lantern Flare if we need to. I might even just go 61. I kind of want to play another removal, another Fateful Absence, and then we just play 24 lands. I mean, Cut Down's still not bad. Cut Down stops a lot of things. And we don't have a ton of things to play on turn 1, so that's viable as well if we wanted to. Now, Hero's Downfall to me often feels worse being... One, it's a 3-color deck, so it's double black. But a lot of times you want to be able to, at least in my experience, it's going to be better to play a thing and have mana open to kill a thing on the same turn. A lot of times when the removal is 3, you kind of get stuck like, okay, I'm either going to play a thing or I'm going to use my removal this turn, but I can't do both. You know what I mean? And that's usually why I make that decision. Destroy Evil is fine. The problem is if you play against like Mono Red, the only thing you're really killing is Mechanized Warfare. Not that that's irrelevant, but that's like the only thing you can hit. Against the black decks, you're not hitting many things except for Shieldred, which again, Shieldred is real, but our other stuff kills Shieldred too. Against the Soldier deck, you're not really killing anything unless they happen to have like multiple veterans out or something. So like, yeah, it just hasn't been as powerful for me. Same thing with Soul Transfer. Soul Transfer is a sorcery as well. It's like, again, don't hate it, but again, there's just only so much room. And if I'm already spending... We have a lot of stuff at 3 and 4. 4 plus, really, when you think about paying kicker on the Archangel. So, if that's the case, I would rather have my removal just be cheaper. Because when we get to the later stages, at best, I at least want to, like, cast a Fable, kill something, and then set up the next turn for maybe a Paragon or something or whatever, if we're so lucky to be able to do it. But that's probably what I'd be looking at, honestly. Farewell beats up a lot of things, so you just don't worry about it. Like, if your opponent gets it, they get it. Like, the way you play around that is you play your 2 or 3 things, and then you force your opponent to deal with it. Like, if you go Fable into Braids, and then you're like, okay, cool, well, I'm going to attack, make a treasure, I'm just going to keep getting a card, and you're going to lose 2 life until you use that Farewell. Then we'll start playing more things. You know what I mean? That's just all you can do. You just hold back cards in your hand and then take advantage of it later. But that's the other reason you want to have some things early, so you can play something on 2, play something on 3, like pressure the opponent into playing the card. The advantage of Farewell is when, like, oh, you didn't play anything on 2, your first thing's on 3, and they could respond to it or counter it or whatever. And then you play something on 4, like, all right, I could deal with that for a couple of turns. And they've had plenty of time to build up and set up and get their Wandering Emperors or whatever. So then by then, you're just dead to a Farewell because you haven't done anything. So you have to be able to pressure them a bit. That's why I also kind of like the idea of the Commando, because, like, okay, I'm getting a point. My next creature is going to be bigger, right? These are things you have to actively start dealing with and really cause an issue. There's also another secret part to Commando, is that if you do get that on turn 1, and you get one of your other creatures the next turn, they can't target it with a cut down because they're going to be a 6 total power or bigger in most cases. So it's going to be too hard for them to do anything about it. So that's another thing. So I actually like that setup. I don't think it's too bad. Yeah, Braid isn't bad, but again, I'd rather just have hard removal for more things. If they have an artifact I can't get rid of, then so be it. I would probably die to it anyway, and I'll accept that. Because part of it is we're also trying to get away with playing Lantern Flare here. I never really play with it. We're just going to have it in the list just to see if it's any good, because that's where it started. But the thing is, this is the type of thing, like, we worked on a deck, viewer idea. We didn't finish in a spot that's so far away from the initial concept, right? We're still trying to do some things with enchantments. There's enough there we can still live that dream. We still have some Samurai in here, trying to make that part of the equation work. Matter of fact, we added some Samurai to the deck to make it work a little better over what was in here. So, yeah, maybe. Like, we'll see. Is this, how good is it? I don't know. I mean, that's a real question. I don't know if I have a good answer, but it at least has enough reasonable cards, right? We know that Commando's fine. We know that Underdog's good. Braids is fine. Fable is great. The Archangel's good, right? So we have enough tools that we can say, all right, I can see how we can win some games. Now, how many we win, we'll find out. But, like, I can at least see how it's possible. And that's the thing. The toughest part is when, which, by the way, if you're a member of the channel, at the $5 level, I have a form set up that you can fill out and just send deck lists in and get deck help and personalized help and stuff. And I do feature those occasionally when those come in. So if you want to do that, that's an option. The tough part is when I do see some of those deck lists and people are like, here, you should do this. And then, like, I have to completely go like, hey, we need to start over on this because this doesn't even have a viable way to really win against most of the decks you're going to run into, right? That's the tough part. And I get it because it's fun to just, like, I want to build a deck with this card and you're going to make it work. And a lot of times, like, I just can't make it work. Like, some cards are just not great. Like we were talking about earlier, the idea with Fateful Handoff is actually really cool, right? It would be neat if we could make that work. But right now, there's just not enough quality cards where we get some amount of value and then get to hand it off to the opponent, right? Like I said, even something as simple as what we're talking, Wall of Blossoms, right? Where it's just an 0-4 wall, comes into play, you draw a card. That would be fine. I would take my 2 extra cards, pass that to the opponent, and then that card generated me 3 cards. Cool. Not great, but it's at least something of relatively value. Where, like, I got value from the card, and then the opponent gets nothing from it other than having 0-4 blocker that I don't care about, right? Even that is acceptable. We don't even have that level of stuff right now that's really any good. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll go to work on this off stream. Try to put some lands in here, see if we can make it work somehow. And we'll just see if we win any games with it. And we'll just see what happens. The most egregious handoff you could achieve is probably Fateful handing off a Meld card. Yeah. I don't know why we would ever do that. But, I mean, you could. The problem is, even the individual cards for Meld, though, are actually decent. That's the thing, right? Do I want to give him a Mishra or a Titania? Maybe is the safest one. But if lands are go to the graveyard for anything, I'm just giving them life. There's an upside to it. But Titania is probably the safest one, but she'd also be in another color you'd have to add that's double green to even cast it. Yeah. Admin, that's an interesting name to use. Well, hello. But yeah, this was a fun exercise. This is why I like these types of things. And I don't know, do y'all enjoy these types of streams? Because if so, maybe we'll do one of these, like, I don't know if I'll say once a week, maybe every other week or something, because I know next weekend is Christmas, so or Christmas Eve and then Christmas, so maybe not then. But the idea of just like, hey, let's find cards, let's find ideas. People present concepts and just like, hey, can we do this, or is there a way to make this work? Because like I said, the idea I like is also helping y'all understand. And I'm not saying like I'm the authority by any stretch, but helping people understand like this is why some things don't work. Because I think that's where so much of the deck building gets bogged down, is that you end up spinning your wheels trying to make certain things work that just don't. You know, there's too many like, and sometimes it's hard to see if you don't know better, right? You don't even know what it is you're missing or why it's not working. So sometimes just having somebody else point a concept out or something to help you shortcut your deck building is actually beneficial. And like I said, I'm a believer that that content a lot of times is better than the deck building stuff in my eyes. Um, Hein says, sure, we should do it. Silky says, yep. It would be like, here you go. Here's my life's work. Fair enough. Uh, Rosa says, yep, this is dope. Fat Marv says, heck yeah. All right, cool. So yeah, we'll try to work these in the rotation. Because like I said, I think these are fun to do. I think it's neat to find ideas and just see things. And sometimes y'all might have an idea. Like I said, even though I work on, I don't know, sometimes 2 or 3 decks a day, doesn't mean I'm going to see or find everything. I talked to other creators that between us, we've talked about a thing and went, oh, here's an idea neither of us have done, right? So there's always something. There's always something. I wouldn't necessarily say that we know everything or we find everything. I definitely don't think that's the case. So any extra ideas can be fun and be worth entertaining. But yeah, yeah, as always, just regular sales pitch. Like if y'all haven't seen my podcast, check the link in the description. You should check out my podcast. It's actually really fun, really good. I do stream on Twitch as well. If you ever want to hop over there and watch me on the Twitch machine. And oh yeah, subscribe to the channel if you haven't and you're watching this. I'd really appreciate it because that helps a lot. And I think that's it. You know, join the channel. There's some freebies. Matter of fact, this week I put out an extra video for people. I sent out a poll that only went to channel members. But if you don't know, I have a low level that's 99 cents. And I do some content ideas and suggestions through there so you can have input on what's on the channel. At the mid level, I give extra videos as well. So a couple of times a month, video goes out just for members. And then on the highest level, you can submit deck lists to me directly, get deck help, personalized stuff. And if it's interesting or I find it fun, then I'll just feature it on the channel. Your stuff can be on the channel for $5. So I think it's 99 cents, $2.99, and $4.99, I believe, are the levels. So people have asked before, but yeah, I guess just telling people for as little as 99 cents you can support the channel, I guess. But yeah, that's it, y'all. Oh, saying thank you for streaming on YouTube. Oh, no problem, man. It's YouTube is my main home, my bread and butter, and I do want to work in more stream rotations for y'all as well. That's going to be part of the plan going into 2023. One of the many things I'm working on. But you know, like I said, y'all already helped me here. Again, I want to say appreciative again, Silky, because I don't even know. I'll have to go back. You donated so much money. Thank you so much today. You didn't have to do that, but I appreciate it. Also, Kenny, don't want to forget, like yours came through as well. Thank you so much. Just all of it. The toughest thing about content is it's a constant grind, and you spend a lot of time working by yourself, literally in this room. Like there's stuff off camera you can't see. That's a big mess. But literally everything I do is out of this, and sometimes I'm in here, not even exaggerating, 12 or 14 hours a day working on stuff. So it's cool when I get to interact with y'all directly, and y'all can interact with me directly because your views, you know, you share. Honestly, the best thing y'all could do, seriously, if you want to be helpful and you can't afford to join the channel or whatever, I get it. Share the videos. If you have any groups, any friends that would like any of the type of content I'm putting out, if they're looking for deck ideas, ways to use quirky cards, maybe they need deck help and they want to watch, they can watch some of my last 2 streams and learn some stuff, share those links with them, because getting them to view it, getting me in their watch history or whatever helps so very much. That's one of the best things you can do for a creator. And I mean that genuinely. If you follow somebody on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever, if they're putting out stuff and you are sharing that with people, getting it in front of other folks, that means so very much. It helps with the AIs and the algorithms and whatever. Seriously, that's one of the best things you could do. If you can get your whole play group to watch one of my videos over the next 3 weeks, that'd probably send my channel to the moon. So, but yeah, a lot of people don't know how that works, but I just wanted to share that. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to get something to drink, grab a snack, and I'll probably try to finish this deck out and see if we can win some games. So maybe that's tomorrow's video. Maybe. We'll see. Depends on if it works or not. But again, thank y'all. Check out today's video if you haven't. It could use the views for sure. It's a self-mill deck. Mostly Teamer color, splashing red for one card. But yeah, check it out. I appreciate y'all. I really love y'all. I genuinely do. I know people say that I love my fans, but I really do. Without y'all, I wouldn't be able to do all this. So thank you so, so very much. But wherever you're watching, whenever you're watching, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, because a bunch of y'all are on the other side of the world. Please remember to take care of yourself and your family. Be like me. I just went and got my vaccines. I got my flu. I got everything today, so my arms are a little bit dead. But, you know, and most importantly, just remember to be awesome to each other.